Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Back home at last. Naruko said as she saw Konoha on the horizon. It had been 3 years since she had seen it. She was curious to see how everyone had changed. She herself hadn't changed too much. She had gotten taller and her boobs had gotten bigger, much to Naruko's and Jiraiya's joy. "We're finally back. I thought I was going to die if I didn't see a girl soon," Jiraiya said all too dramatically. "You do realize that I'm a girl?" Naruko said. "You're too undeveloped to interest me," Jiraiya said. "That wasn't what you thought when you tried to peek on me bathing," Naruko said with a slight tick mark. "You must have imagined it," Jiraiya replied. Naruko said no more as they entered the village, and there Naruko saw 3 very important people. Minato and Kushina hadn't changed at all, but Minama had. She was just as tall as Naruko and her boobs had grown too. But not as much as she had. Naruko thought in delight. Minama's hair had also turned a few shades darker than Kushina's hair, but other than that Minama was just as Naruko remembered her. "Hey guys, great to see you," Naruko said happily. "Jiraiya didn't do anything perverted to you, right?" Kushina said with the utmost seriousness. "What, it's been 3 years and the first thing you ask is if I raped her?" Jiraiya yelled. "Do you really think I would do something like that?" "Yes," Kushina replied. "What?" Jiraiya yelled, looking very offended. As Kushina and Jiraiya started their shouting match, Minato and Minama walked to the side to talk with Naruko. "I'm glad you're back," Minato said. "Me too," Naruko said. Has anything happened since I was gone, like information about Naruto or Mito?" Minato looked down at her sadly. "No, Naruto disappeared off the face of the earth and no one even seen the girls since they ran away." "I see," Naruko said, sounding disappointed. "How's everyone else doing?" "Naruko, you have no idea," Minama said. "When you left, the whole village was told about the Akatsuki and everyone started training even harder than before just to make sure they're strong enough to help you." "Seriously?" Naruko asked. "Yeah, the ninja from our class especially worked really hard," Minama said. "That's amazing. So did anything else happen that I should know about?" Naruko asked. "Well, you know that guy Gaara you fought in the Chunin exams? Well, he's become a Kage," Minama said. "That's pretty cool, but wait, he's a jinchuriki too. Shouldn't we warn him about the Akatsuki? He might have been a little insane when I meet him, but if he's became a Kage he must be better," Naruko said. "Yeah, about that," Minato said. "I tried to schedule a meeting with all the villages that currently have jinchuriki, but it fell through. The sand and the mist were too busy rebuilding the village after the death of their previous Kage and were still on shaky terms with the rock and lighting, so they refused to come. The waterfall village still refuses to admit they have a jinchuriki even though everyone already knows they do." Naruko looked disappointed. She didn't want any of the jinchuriki to be captured. It was wired, but after Mito ran away, Naruko felt like it was her duty to try and help as many people as possible. It didn't make any sense, but Naruko felt that some way somehow Mito would know that she was actually doing good things now instead of putting them down. "Anyways, let's go see everyone," Minama said, grabbing Naruko's arm. "They'll be happy to see you and I can't wait for you to see how everyone's changed." Naruko and Minama ran off, with Minama more or less dragging her sister. "I see she hasn't lost her energy," Kakashi said, suddenly formed behind Minato. "Yeah, I'm happy that the threat of the Akatsuki hasn't dampened her mood, but you don't think that will last long?" Kakashi said. "I don't. You see, the truth is I thought I would have to call Naruko and Jiraiya back before the 3 years were up, but the Akatsuki didn't make any move. Minato said, concerned. Well, they weren't active before Naruko left. In fact, if it wasn't for Orochimaru, we wouldn't know of their existence. So they might not even be close to making their move. Kakashi said. That's what the other Kages believed too when I approached them about the meeting, but something's just not right. Minato said. What do you mean? Kakashi asked, wondering what Minato was so concerned about. It's not just the Akatsuki who haven't made a move, but the whole world has come to a standstill. There hasn't been any major fighting since Naruko left. The Kirigakure civil war ended and everything's going well. Gaara has won acceptance in his village and there's been no major disputes with other villages. Minato said. Isn't that a good thing? Kakashi asked. Normally it would be, but it's strange that after so much violence, especially in Kirigakure, that it would just end. Kakashi, do you know what happened in Kirigakure right before Naruko left? Minato asked. Weren't some prisons assassinated and documents concerning the fourth Mizukage destroyed, and one of the 7 swords stolen? Kakashi said. That's exactly what happened. After that incident, everything just came to a stop. I have a feeling that those prisons knew something that no one else should know and that their deaths were just the last part of cleanup, but it's been 3 years since then and I'm positive that things are going to start getting messy. Minato said, looking up at the sky where dark clouds were rolling in. How do you know? Kakashi asked. I just have a feeling that the piece has been stacked up like wood and that someone is going to light a match and turn that piece into an inferno of chaos. Minato said. Then we better be prepared. Kakashi said. I don't know how prepared we can be for something like this. Minato said. Minima led Naruko to a nearby Baroque restaurant where Minima had told everyone from their graduating class to meet. Hey Naruko, it's been a while. Ino said as they entered. Sorry about Choji, he already started eating without you. Don't worry about it. Naruko said as she took her seat. So how did your training go? Choji said while he was chewing his food. It went well, I feel like I've gotten a lot stronger. Naruko said, kind of embarrassed. Well, don't think we've been slacking. Sakura yelled. I've been training under Tsunade as a medical nin and Sasuke has his full Sharingan now. Really, Sasuke? Naruko asked. Yeah, I did, but I never would have gotten anywhere if my brother hadn't helped me. Sasuke said casually. Don't say that, Sasuke, your brother doesn't have anything on you. Sakura said as if Itachi helping Sasuke was a personal insult. Could you be any louder? Shikamaru said in his laid-back tone. I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Sakura yelled. Please don't fight. Hinata said, trying to calm Sakura down. That's when everyone stopped what they were doing to look at Naruko, who was laughing like a madman. Naruko, are you all right? Minima asked, concerned. I'm fine, Naruko said, getting a hold of herself and wiping the water from her eyes. It's just when I came back I thought everyone would be so different, but it's like nothing changed. I'm glad for that. Hey, we've changed. Do you know how strong I've gotten? Kiba said, sounding offended. She meant personality-wise, not strength-wise, you idiot. Sasuke said. Oh, I knew that. Kiba said, a light blush forming on his face. Sure you did, Ino said. We didn't come here to argue with each other. Hinata said, which caused everyone to go silent. Oh yeah, Sakura said, looking at Naruko. What it is? Naruko asked, getting a little uncomfortable with everyone's eyes on her. We came here to tell you not to worry. Hinata said. We've all decided that we are going to help you. We all worked hard over that last 3 years to make sure we could beat Naruto and bring him back. Hinata said with a bright smile. Naruko was touched by her friend's kind words, but, Hinata, are you sure your sisters is still missing? Don't worry about that, Hinata said. Because we also going to find Mito, Hitomi, and Hanabi. We're going to make it up to them and everyone's here to help. Hi, the group said. I don't know what to say, Naruko said, feeling her heart warm up. Then don't, because actions speak louder than words, Sasuke said. Naruko took Sasuke's suggestion and sat down to have a fun meal with her friends just as it started to rain. Naruto watched the girls spar against Haiden. Naruto was impressed with their progress over the past 3 years. Suigetsu couldn't even handle the three of them anymore in a fight. That's why they had switched over to Haiden. Now Haiden wasn't allowed to use his little blood technique, since then he would surely win along with killing the girls, but even without that he was a force to be reckoned. His side skills in taijutsu were extremely good, and the odd way his scythe moved made it hard to dodge, but that didn't stop the girls from winning from time to time. The rules of the spar were easy. If the girls managed to land a blow that would be fatal on a normal person, then they won, but if Haiden managed to get a decently good strike on all three of the girls, then he won. Out of the total spars, Haiden won about 60% of the time. It was impressive that the girls could hold their own against an S-class, but everyone knew that Haiden was an S-class for his skill. It was only because of his immortality and blood-killing jutsu that made him S-class, and if it was a fight to the death, Haiden would wipe the floor with the girls. Most of the girls' wins came when Hitomi would manage to trap Haiden in a genjutsu with her now fully active Sharingan. Honestly, it was just sad at how bad Haiden was at genjutsu. It could take him an upward of 5 minutes to break a simple genjutsu, more than enough time for the girls to kill him. The other times the girls won is when they would be able to stop his scythe by either cutting the wire that kept Haiden's scythe attached to him or keeping him in a parry long enough for one of the girls to get behind him. This spar was one of the latter. Mito was currently fighting close range with Kiba. Hanabi was throwing her Nuabari at Haiden, trying to land a hit, and Hitomi was launching some fireballs from afar. Haiden was dodging pretty well, but with Mito constantly on him, he couldn't use his scythe to block the income projectiles. Mito had guts, she was covered in cuts, but none were serious enough for Naruto to take her out of the spar. All the hard work paid off in the end, as Hanabi was finally able to price Haiden in the heart. Yes, we did it! Hanabi yelled. This is the first time that we've won without any of us getting taken out, Hitomi said. Hey, you right, Mito said. Yeah, hooray for you, Haiden said angrily as he pulled Hanabi's sword out of his chest. I'm going to my room. Good work as always, Naruto said as he walked by. Shut up, you fucker, Haiden said before he left. I see he's in a good mood as always, Suigetsu said. He's just mad that he hasn't been able to go on any massacres in the last 3 years, Naruto said. It's hard to believe it's been 3 years, Mito said, thinking about how she and her friends had grown these past 3 years. They were all wearing a dark red cloak that basically showed they were part of the Akatsuki but not main members. The three of they had been working hard over the last 3 years, and it showed. The rest of the Akatsuki no longer thought of them as the condition for Naruto to join, but as an asset to the organization, although they were still the lowest tier, having nowhere near as much power as the other. The girls had met each member of the Akatsuki at least once when they came to the hideout for one reason or another. There was Sasori, a puppeteer from Suna, and his partner Deidara, a crazy bomber from IWA. He was actually kind of helpful, however, as he taught Mito how to make your paper tags more dangerous. Then there was Kakazu, a bounty hunter who the entire time he was with them just started at Naruto like he was some huge piece of meat, and his partner Kisame, who was one of 7 swordsmen. Konan was probably the nicest of the Akatsuki members. Pain and Zestu, who they already knew, and then there was Tobi. Tobi was maybe the only person weaker than the girls in the Akatsuki. He was an idiot with no real power. Mito had no idea how he even got into the Akatsuki. He was also technically Zesta's partner, which was even stranger, but Mito didn't want to hurt her head thinking about the ninja known as Tobi. Today was also the last they were going to be stuck in the hideout, because it was the day they left to start hunting jinchuriki. Well, Haiden and Naruto were anyways. Suigetsu and the girls would be a backup squad, as Zesta called it, but Naruto title was much accurate. They were the Akatsuki's errand girls. Their job was to do anything and everything the Akatsuki told them to do. Any team could contract Zesta to request them for a mission that didn't involve capturing a jinchuriki, and when they weren't doing that they were hunting bounties. Mito wasn't complaining, but it just seemed like all the members were too prideful to call in some girls for help, so they would be spending most their time getting money for the Akatsuki. Mito also knew that Hanabi would miss being around a certain someone. Hanabi had a huge crush on Naruto and was trying her best to get him to return her feeling without being a fangirl, but with Naruto personality it was kind of hard to figure out how to do that. It didn't stop Hanabi, however. She had cut her hair shorter and tried her best to look as good as possible when in front of Naruto. She also wore a pair of fingerless gloves, which Naruto had given her, religiously since she was burning herself by holding the Nuabari's wire when she threw it. However, all Hanabi's progress was almost lost one day when Suigetsu finally managed to pin Hanabi down and sharpen her teeth. He managed to do 3 on the left side of her mouth before she broke free. Suigetsu felt pretty good after that day, but Hanabi spent the next week in her room crying about it. She only came out when she heard Naruto talking to Suigetsu outside her room. He casually mentioned how he thought Hanabi looked cute like that. Mito didn't want to tell Hanabi that he probably said that to get her out of her room because Hanabi seemed happy again. Besides, her teeth didn't make her look too bad. Mito didn't know if they made her look cuter, but they certainly made her look stronger. Mito was even thinking about finally letting Suigetsu sharpen her teeth. "Well, I'm glad to see you 3 have grown into strong ninjas these past 3 years," Naruto said, breaking Mito out of her thought. "But just remember, you're not invincible, and no matter how weak an enemy seems, fight them like it's going to be your hardest battle." The girls smiled. They hadn't been the only ones to change these last 3 years. After Naruto's defeat by the Leaf Ninja, he stopped being so cocky and trained just as hard as any of the girls, even if reading books didn't seem like hard work. Now Naruto was still pretty full of himself, and the girls knew he wouldn't be taking his own advice on fighting weak enemies. The girls would be taking his advice, however, since they knew they weren't invincible. At the level they were at now, they wouldn't be able to beat Naruto when they first meet him, and Naruto had become way stronger since then. The girls didn't think it would be possible when they first met him, but now the girls were truly afraid for whoever had to fight him now. "Don't worry, we'll be careful," Hitomi said. Naruto looked at the girls with a smile, not one of his insane killer smile, a soft smile that actually made Naruto seem like a caring older brother, and this made the girls happy. Naruto seemed to realize what he was doing by the girl's face and suddenly returned back to his normal scowl. "As if I would worry about you brats," Naruto said. "Keep telling yourself that," Mito said. Naruto sighed, knowing that the girls had caught him in his lie, but he'd never admit that he cared for them. "Good luck on your missions. I'm getting hidden and we're leaving. Try not to get yourself killed." "Goodbye, Naruto," Hanabi said softly, knowing that they weren't going to see him for a while. "Goodbye, brats," Naruto said as he got hidden and left the hideout. After Naruto left, it suddenly felt very empty, and that's when the girls finally realized that Naruto had left them on their own. Of course, Suigetsu would still be with them, and the girls had grown just as attached to him as they had with Naruto, but he just wasn't the person they risked Leaf Hunter needs to meet. "I guess we better start looking for bounties," Hitomi suggested. "Yeah, it is our job now," Mito said. "I don't care who we go after as long as we can get out of this cave," Suigetsu said. Leaving the sand was the best decision Nasto had ever made. By stealing Suna's secrets, he had not only made a bunch of money, but he had also become somewhat famous. He was now an A-rank missing nin. Nasto really hoped that he caused a lot of trouble for that monster who was now leading his former village. Nasto was planning on heading to a nearby village and get some whores with his newfound money, but on his way he met a girl. If Nasto was to guess, he'd say she was about 17. She had long black hair and beautiful green eyes. She was looking at a map, hopelessly lost. "Maybe I won't have to get a whore after all," Nasta thought. "Hey Missy, do you need some help?" The girl jumped at Nasta's words, but looked eager to talk to him. "Thank Kami you're here. I thought I was going to be lost out here forever. Can you tell me which direction this town is in?" the girl asked, handing Nasta the map. I can, but I need some sort of payment. Nasta said. Really, how much do you want? The girl said. I don't need any money but something else. Nasta said with a creepy smile. The girl seemed to get what Nasta was implying and blushed deeply. Well, I guess I could give you a little something, but could you look at that map first? Of course I can, Nasta said, looking down at the map only to see it wasn't a map anymore. It was an explosives tag about ready to go off. Genjutsu, Nasta thought before trying to let go of the paper. Too little too late, however, as the tag exploded in his hands. Nasta held back his screams of pain as the explosion burnt his hands black. Why, you bitch, I'm going to gut you. Nasta screamed at her as he threw a kunai at the girl, who was still standing there, only to realize she was a genjutsu too as the kunai went right through her. Nasta started looking around to try and find who casted the genjutsu, knowing they couldn't be far. Then suddenly a weapon that looked like a needle price thought a tree in front of Nasta and got him through the stomach. Nasta couldn't stop the screams this time, and before he could even complete his fit of agony, a string connecting the needle to whoever threw it started reeling back in with Nasta on it. He was pulled into the tree that the needle had priced though to get him. Nasta was now stuck up against the tree, not able to move, and barely able to look around. He was in trouble and he knew it. There must be some pretty good bounty hunters around here, so it was time for him. He started doing hand signs for a winjutsu to knock down the tree, but before he could finish, a sword that was charged with lighting chakra cut through the tree like a knife through butter, along with Nasta neck separating his head from the rest of his body. He was an A rank? Mito asked, walking around the tree. That's what it said in the bingo book. Hitomi said, not quite believing this guy was A rank either. Did we really get that much stronger? Hanabi said. Yes and no, Suigetsu said from his observation spot. It's true you three have gotten stronger, but it was your planning that made the fight so easy. He might have been an A rank and would have given you three a pretty tough fight, but he was outnumbered and caught off guard. It just goes to show that no matter how strong you are, missing one little trick or underestimating your opponents could mean death. You know, you and Naruto give out the same advice, but neither one of you do a very good job of following it. Mito said. Suigetsu looked at her with irritation in his eyes. That's because I'm made of water and Naruto has his reflection. We don't need to worry as much. Aren't you just making excuses? Hitomi asked. Just pack up the body so we can get our money. Suigetsu said, walking off. Fine, Mito sighed as she started sealing the body. Hey Mito, what do you think Naruto's doing right now? Hanabi asked. I don't know, but I'm more curious on what my sisters have been doing in the leaf. I bet Naruko's still just as mean and stuck up as the day I left. Mito said, sounding a little bitter. Minato, Kushina, Jiraiya, Naruko, Minama, and Kakashi were all sitting in Minato office. What did you want to talk about? Jiraiya asked Minato. It's about what's been going on this past week. The murder rate has shot up and high-ranking missing nin are dropping like flies. Minato said. While Minato was giving his speech, something was going on far away. Looks like that's all of them, Naruto said, looking at the 20 or so ninja that were nothing more than piles of flesh on the ground. I thought that after 3 years they would forget about my bounty, but no, it only takes one Chunin to spot me before a small army runs my way. Finally, I got to kill something. Haydn, who was covered in blood, said. Let's just get going, I don't want to spend any more time here. Naruto said. There's been a lot more activity too. Minato said. The 5 great nations have suddenly become more guarded. Hey, wouldn't they send more ninjas after us once they find the bodies? Haydn asked. It's possible, but the ninja war is kind of busy right now with the sudden increase of violence. Besides, Kakazu has done way more killing than we have. It seems like he just can't stop hunting bounties. Naruto said. I'm not sure what happened to cause this, but it can't be good. Minato said. You have to have at least some clue? Kushina said. I have my theory, but it's too early to tell. Minato said. What is it? Minima said with a determined look. That the Akatsuki has started to make its move. Minato said. So all this panic just because the Akatsuki went into action? Hayden said, sounding intrigued. The Akatsuki has 9 of the strongest ninjas alive, although I doubt anyone else knows that yet. Naruto said. But everyone knows something else. That the other ninja villages will be divided into people who accepted that something big is happening and people who try and ignore it. Minato said. But what's happening? Naruko asked. The world is starting to move again. Minato/Naruto said. Naruko was laying in her bed looking at the ceiling and had been for the past couple of hours. After the meeting with her dad, her brain went into overload, and this was the only way she knew how to clear it. If Minato was right about the Akatsuki, and Naruko was sure he was, then the world would go from slowly starting up aging to moving faster than light. It was a troubling thought, and Naruko knew she'd be right in the middle of it. If no one the Akatsuki came after her, would she be strong enough? Would they be just as strong or stronger than Naruto? Even though her friends promised to help her, how many of them would have to die before one of the Akatsuki members were taken down? They got lucky when fighting Naruto. If it wasn't for Shikamaru's plan and Minima's sacrifice to provide the information for that plan, then Naruto would have killed a lot more of them than just 2 Umbu. So many questions, so many problems. Naruko wished she could just go back to being an academy student and let everyone else handle things, but that wasn't an option. There was no choice but to keep on keeping on. In the days to come, Minato would be proving right in the fact that the peace was ending. There was a 20 ninja massacre by 2 unknown ninjas. Umbu sent to investigate them never came back, and then the first real confirmation of the Akatsuki arrived, and it couldn't have been a worse wake call for the world. The first jinchuriki was captured, Gaara the Kazekage of the Sand. He was even captured in his own village, which really showed the world how powerful the Akatsuki was. Suna contacted Minato almost immediately after it happened, asking for help. Minato, who thought that doing this would help his relationship with the Sand, but more importantly to get more information on the Akatsuki, decided to help. Minato was just going to send Guy's team and Kakashi's team minus Naruko, since Minato would not hand the Akatsuki his daughter. To replace Naruko, he would have sent Itachi, but this plan fell though. Itachi was not in the village, instead he was on a highly important mission, and Naruko complained how badly she wanted to go, so the final lineup was Team Guy, Team Kakashi, and Kushina to make sure Naruko was safe. You all understand the mission, right? Minato said. Get to Suna, find out what's going on, then trail the Akatsuki to find Gaara. Minima said. Good. But remember, if it gets too dangerous, you leave. Minato said with that strict down-to-business tone. Got it, Kushina said. Then you better be on your way. Minato said. Naruto and Hayden were walking through the mountains on their way to Kumo. Why is it so fucking cold? Hayden yelled. Now Naruto prided himself on being calm and collective, but Hayden had been complaining ever since they left the base, and that had been a while ago. That, combined with the bounty hunters that tried to kill them and Hayden having them stop every half hour to do his ritual, was really getting to him. Because we're in the mountains where it's cold, and maybe you wouldn't be so cold if you put a shirt on. Naruto yelled. There was silence for a brief moment. I don't want to. Hayden said. This caused Naruto punch the rock wall to the side of him in anger. His enhanced punch was so strong that the rock wall was sent crumbling down. And you say I have anger issues? Hayden said. Let's just get going. Naruto said, trying his best not to rip Hayden limb from limb. Actually, it's time for my ritual. Hayden said. That was the last straw for Naruto. He got into an attacking position, prepared to rip Hayden's head off. He would have done it too if Pain hadn't started communicating with them at that exact moment. Sasori and Deidara caught the one tail, will be sealing it soon, so get ready. Naruto sighed. It looks like he wouldn't be killing Hayden today. You heard him, let's find a spot to meditate. Naruto said. What in the fucking cold? Hayden yelled. Naruto, choosing to ignore him, jumped up the side of the mountain so he was off the path. Hayden followed him shortly after, and when they got mildly comfortable they sent their thought to the ceiling statue. Naruto and Hayden appeared on one of the fingers of the statue looking like some kind of rainbow hologram. Everyone else was already there in their holographic form with the exception of Deidara and Sasori, who were already in the room. Gaara was laid out on the floor in front of them. "Now that we're all here we can begin," Pain said. All the Akatsuki members did the required hand sign and a strange aura came from the statue's mouth. "Hey, how long is this going to take?" Hayden said, becoming bored just after a couple seconds of this. 3 days, Pain said. 3 days? Are you fucking kidding me? We'll be here forever. Hayden said. Hayden, you do long rituals all the time, so why is this a problem? Naruto asked. Because this doesn't have anything to do with Jashin. Hayden said like it was common knowledge. I hate you, was all Naruto said in reply. Stop your bickering. The longer this takes us, the more time the ninja have to find us. Pain said. So the Sand Ninja are going to try and crash the party. Kisame said. Actually then enlisted the Leaf Nin for help. They'll be at Suna in a day, Zesta said. Who's coming? Kakazu asked. Almost all of Naruto's family along with some other troublesome foes. In fact, 3 days might be too long if we don't do something to stall their progress. Zesta said. I'm guessing you have a plan to stall them then. Sasori said. We called in Suigetsu, the girls and Tobi to fight them if they get too close. It's going to be a family reunion. Zesta said. Are they strong enough to beat them, and since they used to be Leaf Nin, will they even fight them? Kakazu asked what every other Akatsuki was thinking. Well, Naruto, are they? Pain asked. They're probably not strong enough to beat those odds, but they should defiantly be able to buy us enough time. Naruto said. That's not the problem, it's if the girls will fight their home village. After all, your sisters are on both sides. Kisame said. They're loyal to me. Naruto said plainly. They better be, because if they betray the Akatsuki I will kill them. Pain said. The girls, Suigetsu, Tobi and a white Zesta clone were set up a couple miles away from the ceiling site going over the plan of attack. Wow, this is exciting, going up against these strong foes. Of course they'll be no match for me. Tobi said, doing some kind of fighting pose. Tobi, can you stop messing around and get over here? Mito yelled. Now that's not very nice. Maybe if you said please then maybe ah. Tobi screamed as Suigetsu started shooting water bullets at him. Thank you, Hitomi said. Anyways, back to the plan. They'll want to get to Gaara as fast as possible, so once they find Gaara's scent they probably make a straight shot from the sand, so we should set up traps on this path. Hitomi said, dragging her finger along the map. But won't they be expecting traps? Hanabi asked. We'll just have to make them well hidden. We'll also be able to track their progress thanks to our second set of eyes. Hitomi said, pointing to the white Zesta clone. We'll also have Suigetsu in a nearby pond for an ambush. Hopefully they actually come over there. It's a little out of the way. Suigetsu said. Yeah, but there's a good chance that they'll decide to water walk over the pond instead of taking their time going through the tress. Hitomi said. What about me? What do I get to do? Tobi said. Hitomi turned to Tobi and gave him the brightest smile she could. Tobi, you get the most important job of them all. You have to guard the area right by the cave and make sure no one gets in if they get past us. Wow, that is important, but never fear, Tobi won't let any of those ninja scums get past him. Tobi said as he went running off. I thought there were already measures taken to defend the cave? Mito asked. There is, but at least this way Tobi can't screw anything up. I hope. Hitomi said. The Leaf Ninja arrived at the Suna about a day later, and things were not looking good. Kankuro, who had went out to chase after the Akatsuki, was near death because he had been poisoned. Chio, a very old lady who was apparently Suna's poison expert, couldn't cure it, so it. The other huge problem was the sandstorm that was raging outside. They couldn't risk traveling because due to the fact that they had to track the Akatsuki, and with all that sand it would be way too easy to get lost. Is there anything we can do to help? Tenten asked Granny Chio. Not unless you know more about poisons than me, and no one does. Chio said. Actually, that's not true. The Slug Queen might be able to do it. She said after thinking about it a little more. Tsunade, this would be right up her alley. Minama said. But there's no way we could get her here in time. Kakashi said. Well, we can't just give up on him. Lee shouted, looking at Kankuro, who looked to be in a lot of pain. Well, the only way he's going to get better is if we have an antidote, but since I can't make one, the only option is to force the man who poisoned him to give us one. Chio said. Who would that be? Kushina asked. Chio avoided looking Kushina in the eyes. Kankuro said it was Sasori of the Red Sand, which would be my grandson. The whole room was silent, trying to take that in. Eventually it got too much for Naruko and she decided to leave. Once out in the hall, she saw Temari sitting on one of the many benches scattered around the hospital. She looked like she had been crying, and Naruko suddenly realized how hard this must be for her. One of her brothers had been kidnapped by the Akatsuki and her other one was dying in the room next door. She reminded Naruko of herself and the two siblings, that she couldn't do anything to help. Naruko felt for Temari because if Kankuro and Gaara died, then she'd be all alone. No parent, no siblings, no one. Naruko couldn't even imagine, even when Mito ran away, she had Minama, Kazen and Tusan, and even after she told them how horrible she had been to Mito, they still loved her. Naruko would need to thank them for that. Hey, are you alright? Naruko said, taking a seat next to Temari. Not really, things were going so well for the village a week ago and now this. Temari said, a few tears running down her face. Don't worry, we'll rescue Gaara and save Kankuro, and you'll be right beside us. Naruko said. Actually, I'm not going. Temari said. Naruko was shocked. She couldn't believe that Temari wasn't going. What? Why don't you want to save you brothers? Oh, course I do. Temari yelled, tears streaming down her face. But the council isn't letting me. In fact, they're not letting anyone go. They think Gaara is a lost cause. Why do you think we called you for help? I didn't think about that. Naruko said quietly. Still, I'm glad you came after what we did to you during the Chunin exams. You should be glad that Gaara got captured. Temari said. I would never let the Akatsuki keep Gaara, and not just because we're both jinchuriki, but because we're friends. Naruko said. Thanks, Temari replied. After one full day filled with worry, the sandstorm finally lifted. The Leaf Ninja were ready to go the moment they could, because every second that they weren't looking was another second that the Akatsuki had with Gaara, the less chance Kankuro had. They weren't the only ones going. Chio was coming to help too. She wasn't a ninja anymore, so the council couldn't stop her. Alright, let's move out. Kakashi said, who had packed in tracing Sasori thanks to a piece of cloth Kankuro managed to get. They ran as fast as they could and were making pretty good time as the sun started to set. They even managed to reach the forest before long. It felt like they were going to make it within the day, but unknown to them they were being watched. After the white Zesta marked the ninja progress, he went back to the girls and told them their location and who was in the group. So my mom and sister are here. Mito said. Mito, are you sure you'll be able to fight them? They are your family. Hitomi said. Of course I'll fight them. Have you forgotten how my family threw me to the side? Well, I haven't. Naruto's my only family now. Mito yelled, not happy with the question. It was just a question. Hitomi said, surprised by Mito's sudden outburst. Could she still hate her family that much after all these years? Hitomi guesses she shouldn't be talking. After all, she still hated Itachi. Anyways, they should be hitting the trap soon, so we should get set up. Yasuajetsu already in position and we don't want to cause Naruto any problems just because we couldn't stop them. Hanabi said. How long till the sealing done? Hitomi asked White Zestu. A little less than a day. He said. Then that's how long we'll have to keep them at bay. Hitomi said. Let's get going, Hanabi said, leading them to the ambush point. Kakashi saw the tripwire dead ahead. It was well hidden, and would have gotten any regular ninja but not Kakashi. Looks like they planted traps. There's a tripwire dead ahead, just avoid it, we don't want to waste time by dismantling it. Hi, the group said as they jumped over the wire. This was the start of a long track, though, dozens of traps. Unlike the wire, the next traps couldn't simply be jumped over. They ranged from hidden holes to explosive tags set to go off when someone got too close. The team was good enough not set any of them off, but they had to waste time finding a way around them or dismantling them. This slowed their progress to a crawl. There shouldn't be this many traps. Tenten said. What are you talking about? Naruko said. I'm saying that if it's taking use this long to make it past the traps, it must have taken them just as long to set them up. Now maybe they could have set up a couple here and there, but the traps are everywhere. Do you really think that the people who kidnapped Gaara would stop and waste all this time? That is strange. They must have had someone come and plant the traps after the fact. Kushina said. Why would they do that? What's the point? Minima asked. The whole group thought about it. Well, let's see, you would only plant tarps to kill someone or keep someone from you. These traps aren't strong enough to kill us, but what's the point in setting them if your time could be better spent putting more distance between us and them? The only thing that placing traps would be good for is dash it hit Kushina like a truck if they can't move for some reason. These traps are just meant to waste our time. Kushina said, looking around the forest. The only reason they wouldn't be able to move is if they were removing the beast from Gaara. Is that even possible? Lee asked. It is, but it takes a lot of strong ninja to even attempt it, and even then it would take forever to complete it. Shio said. Damn, how much time have we wasted because of these traps? Kushina said angrily. Just clam down, it's not like we can get through them any quicker just because we know they're meant to slow us down, so let's just keep going. Guy said. That's just what they did, slowly made their way through the traps. It took the rest of the day before they finally made it past all of them. Alright, we'll rest here for a couple hours. Kushina said. What, we can't stop now? We still have to find Gaara. Naruko said. We can't risk going any farther right now. Kushina said. If the traps stop, then that means we close, and we're defiantly going to have to fight if we get there, so we're going to rest and get our strength up. Then we'll head out. Naruko didn't like it, but she understood Kushina's logic, so she couldn't put up too much of an argument. Naruko wandered around for a little bit looking at the scenery. It wasn't too long before Naruko started to get tired. She guessed going through all those traps really took it out of her. Naruko decided that she would take a short nap. She found a nice soft spot on the ground and fell asleep almost immediately. Naruko, wake up! Someone said. Naruko didn't want to. It was so cozy and warm lying in the grass, but Naruko slowly opened her eyes to see Minima standing in front. Naruko thought how pretty her sister looked, sunlight hitting her at the perfect angle, her red hair. So wait a minute, sunlight. Naruko shot up to look at the sky. The sun wasn't just out, it was high in the sky. Minima, what happened? Naruko asked. Someone cast a genjutsu on us that caused us all to fall asleep. Minima said. But how, we have Kakashi and Sasuke, shouldn't they have been able to spot the genjutsu? Naruko asked. Apparently not, but come on, we have to meet up with Kazan to figure out what we're going to do. Minima said. Naruko and Minima walked up to join the other. Every looked frustrated and Sasuke and Kakashi looked ashamed for not spotting the genjutsu. We lost a lot of time, but there's nothing we can do about it, so let's get moving on the double. Kushina said. Hi, the group said as they ran off as fast as they could. The white Zesta clone who had been watching them ever since they fell asleep went to report back to the girls. They've woken up, Zesta said to the girls when he arrived. And at the speed they're going they'll make it if only barely. Damn, if only they could have slept for a little bit longer. Hitomi cursed. Still, you genjutsu got us a ton of time, Mito said. Yeah, that jutsu is pretty amazing. It's the only genjutsu I ever got Naruto with, Hitomi said. Why didn't you just kill them while they were sleeping? White Zestu asked. Ninja are trained to sense attacks even if they're sleeping. My genjutsu only puts them to sleep, it doesn't keep them asleep, which is the reason why I couldn't predict when they walk up, Hitomi said. If we had tried to attack him, the odds are they would walk up. Then they'd have that much more time, not to mention we'd be completely outnumbered. If only they went over the lake, then Suigetsu would have stalled them for long enough, Hanabi said. Well, that didn't happen and we can't go back and get him, so it looks like we'll be the ones fighting, Hitomi said. I wonder how my family's going to react when they see we've joined the Akatsuki, Mito said. Maybe the shook alone will be enough to stall them. By the way, how long do we have to stall them for? Hitomi asked White Zestu. Not long, 30 minutes at the max, he said. Then we better get moving, Hanabi said as the girls started running to the ambush point. The group was on the move again. With no more traps, they were able to leave the forest behind and were now in a valley with trees on either side of them. It was dangerous to travel in the open like this, but they could travel at full speed this way. Their sense are getting stronger, we're almost there, Pakin said. Yes, we're going to make it, Lee yelled. The celebration was cut short, however, when dark clouds suddenly started to roll in and a lightning bolt came from the sky. The group had to dodge out of the way to avoid being fried. We're beginning attacked defensive positions, Guy said. Niji, use you Byakugan and figure out who launched that lightning bolt. Guy, I think you mean figure out who's launching lightning bolts, Kakashi said as lightning started to rain down on them. The group was forced to keep dodging the seemingly endless supply of lightning bolts while Niji scanned the area. Found him, Niji said after 2 minutes of searching. In that tree, they're using the leaves as cover. Got it, Kushina said as she shot a chain at high speed towards the tree Niji pointed at. They all saw Kushina's chain hit the tree, causing it to splinter into a million pieces, but they also saw a blur holding what looked like 2 swords jumped out of the tree before Kushina's chain hit. Damn, I missed. At least the lightning stopped, Minima said. Yeah, but if we don't get him, then it's just going to start raining lightning again, Chio said. Then let's get going, we don't have a lot of time, Ten said, but before they could make it one step towards their target, about 50 small fireballs were launched at them from the other side. Earth wall, Kakashi said, doing a few hand sighs, putting a wall between them and the fire. Looks like there's more than one, Kakashi said. That can't be, I would have noticed, Niji said, looking through the wall with his Byakugan. Something's coming, Niji yelled. Everyone dropped to the floor as a needle priced through the wall Kakashi had made. It would have priced Lee's heart had it not be for Niji's warning. The needle was embedded in the ground for a second before it was pulled back through the wall by a string connected to it. Just as the group was getting back on their feet, the lighting started again. It's never ending, Kakashi said as he was forced to dodge another bolt. We've got to do something, Kushina said. I've got an idea, Minima said. Niji, can you find who's shooting that lighting again? Sure, Niji said as he started scanning the area. Found him, Niji said, pointing to another tree. Ka-san, can you shoot a chain at the tree again? Minima asked. But he'll just dodge again, Kushina said. Don't worry about that. I've got a plan, Minima said, placing her hand on the ground. All right, Kushina said, sending another chain at the tree. Just like last time, the tree was destroyed by Kushina's chain and a figure jump off, but this time one of Minima's chains shot from the ground under the figure since Minima knew he would dodge. The figure, unable to move in midair, was caught by Minima's chain wrapping around his leg. Minima then used her chain to throw the figure toward the group. The figure was sent tumbling to the ground just in front of them. They couldn't see who it was due to the dust that had risen due to the impact, but when it cleared they got the shock of a lifetime. "Wow, it looks like I underestimated you," Mito said, brushing the dust off her cloak. The whole group couldn't believe what they were seeing, but none were as affected as Kushina. "Mito, what are you doing here?" Kushina asked, looking at her baby girl. She was holding two swords that Kushina knew was the Kiba. "I think that's oblivious. I'm trying to stop," Mito said with a cocky smile. "That can't be. That would mean you're part of the Akatsuki," Kushina said, tears leaking down her face. "That's right," Mito said, seeming like she was having fun torturing them. "But why?" Kushina yelled. "Do you even know what the Akatsuki's trying to do?" Kushina said, hoping that they had just fooled her, and when Kushina explained what they were really doing, Mito would come home. "The Akatsuki's goal is to capture all the tailed beasts," Mito said matter-of-factly. This broke Kushina's heart. Her own daughter had joined an organization to hunt down Naruko. What could have caused her to do this? "Mito, we're your family, why would you do this?" Everyone was surprised when Mito started laughing. "Family, that's a good one. Tell me, Kazan, what kind of family ignores their daughter and punishes her when Naruko decided to release some demonic churka?" This hit Naruko hard, as she remembered all the times she would do that just to get Mito in trouble. "Mito, I've changed, I promise that I'm not like that anymore," Naruko pleaded. "Even if you have," which Mito didn't believe, "it's already too late. I found a new family in the Akatsuki. One that gives me way more respect than you ever did," Mito yelled, releasing some very potent killer instinct. They could all feel it, the hate that Mito felt for her family. It got them thinking, were they really that bad? "Mito, come on, we'll make it up to you," Minima pleaded. "Why should I give you the chance?" Mito yelled. "I don't know what will happen if I go back to the leaf, but I do know what did happen. When I was in the leaf I was miserable, but what I found after I left made me happy, so why would I go back?" "Isn't there anything we can do to make you come back?" Kushina said softly. "Well, you could beat me and force me to come back as a prisoner since we are enemies now," Mito said, knowing this would really get to Kushina. "You can't really mean that?" Kushina said in shock. "You can't really expect us to fight you?" "You bet I can," Mito said as she put her two swords together and shoot lightning at Kushina. Kushina, still being in shock for seeing her daughter after all this years, didn't even try to dodge, so it was up to Minima to use her own lighting jutsu and meet Mito's jutsu halfway. When they connected, they cancelled each other out. "Mito, just look at the position you're in, you can't really expect to beat us, just look how outnumbered you are," Minima said, trying to make Mito see reason. "I'm not as outnumbered as you think," Mito said as two figures that everyone knew jumped to either side of Mito. "Lady Hanabi," Niji said in shock. "It's been a long time, hasn't Niji? How's my sister doing?" Hanabi said, and everyone noticed the three sharpened teeth and wondered how she got them. "Hitomi," Sasuke said without much emotion. "Sasuke," Hitomi said exactly the same way. "So it looks like all of you have joined the Akatsuki," Kakashi said, noticing their wardrobe. "You give us too much credit," Hanabi said. "We're not even part of the main force." "If that's the case, then it shouldn't be too hard to get past you," Sasuke said, making the Namake's family look at him with a disgusted look. "Sasuke, that's my sister and your cousin. We can't just fight them," Naruko said, quiet enough so the girls couldn't hear. "I get what you're saying, but we're on a mission and we can't afford to be wasting time. We have to fight," Sasuke said, activating his Sharingan. "He's right, it looks like we only have one choice." Kakashi said, getting into a fighting position. Naruko didn't like what she was hearing, but if Mito wasn't going to come with them willingly, then what other choice did they have? Sasuke launched a huge fireball at the girls. Hitomi saw this and launched her own equally as big fireball to cancel Sasuke's. Naruko did a great breakthrough ninjutsu to increase the power of Sasuke's fireball. It worked. The fireball smashed fought Hitomi's fireball. Water formation wall. Hanabi yelled, creating a huge wall of water putting out the fireball. That wasn't all, however, as the water continued to flow towards the leaf ninja. Crap, it's going to hit us, Naruko said. Don't worry, I got this, Tenten said as she threw a bunch of kunais with explosive tag at the rushing water. The explosion caused the water to collapse in on itself, so instead of a raging wave hitting them, it was a clamstein, like when you let the waves break on your feet at the beach. This moment was short-lived, however, as the leaf ninja saw Mito doing some hand signs with her swords on the ground on either side of her. Everyone jump! Kakashi yelled. Everyone did right before the water was electrocuted thanks to Mito's jutsu. But the girls weren't done yet. Since now all the leaf ninja were in the air, they wouldn't be able to move, giving Hanabi the perfect chance to skewer one of them with her needle, and her target was Sasuke. With the needle flying right towards him, Sasuke knew there was no way he was going to survive, but right before the needle went through his brain, it suddenly turned and flew off in a different direction. Sasuke didn't know what happened, and by the look on Hanabi's face, neither did she. They all landed on the ground away from the water safely. What the heck just happened? Naruko asked Sasuke. I don't know, Sasuke said. Well then, I guess it was a good thing I was here, or you youngling would be dead, Chiyo said, holding up one of her fingers, and Naruko and Sasuke could now see a chakra string connected to Hanabi's sword. When did you do that? Hanabi said angrily as she brought back her sword to her hand and cut the chakra string. Chiyo chuckled at the girl. Maybe your eyes aren't as good as you thought, she said. I did that when you priced the mud wall. They could have sworn they heard Hanabi growl at the thought of an opponent getting a chakra string past her eyes. There's no need to be mad, I just hid my string behind one of your friends when you threw it. Hanabi wanted to kill her for embarrassing her like that, but she knew that if she rushed in there like an idiot, she'd get herself killed or captured. Not like rushing in would have been an option at that point, since Kakashi and Guy were rushing towards them. The girls got into a defensive position and a taijutsu battle ensued. The girls assumed that they were only using taijutsu because they didn't want to hurt them too badly, because they still had this idea in their heads that they could get the girls to come back. How wrong they were. Now the girls weren't complaining, since if Kakashi was using ninjutsu, then the girls would probably be beat. That's not to say it was easy to keep two highly skilled jounin off then in a taijutsu battle. They were doing pretty good thanks to all that training with Haiden, so the full fight was the girls trading blows with the jounin, with the exception that Guy would get in a great hit everyone in a while, since he was by the far the best taijutsu user out of all of them. As the fight went on, it was becoming more and more oblivious who was winning as the jounin kept making ground. It was a good thing that the rest of the leaf nin didn't join, since against all of them there was no way the girls would be able to hold their own, but relief finally came. What Zestu emerged from the ground behind the leaf ninjas so they couldn't see him, but the girls could. He gave them a creepy smile and a thumbs up, which the girls knew meant that they had stalled for long enough. The girls jumped back to put some distance between them and the jounin. Guy and Kakashi were going to go after them, but Mito's words stopped them. Well, it was fun seeing you guys again, but we've got to go, Mito said right before a smoke bomb went off. Wait, don't go, Kushina shouted in a desperate attempt to stop them, but they had already disappeared. Kushina looked heartbroken for losing her daughter again before she made a decision. Kakashi were going after them. Kakashi looked at her in shock, not knowing what to say. On one hand, going after them would be basically abandoning the mission. On the other hand, the look of determination in Kushina's eyes made Kakashi a little scared to go against her order. Lucky someone had a little more backbone than Kakashi. No, Chiyo said. I don't care if that is your daughter, the fact is they are the enemy now, and going after them will jeopardize the mission, and if you had a brain you would have realized they left because they don't think we can get to Gare in time. So if we're going to have any chance of saving Gaara, we need to live right now. Kushina glared at Chio, looking like she wanted to kill her, but she wasn't backing down from Kushina's glare. Fine, let's get going, Kushina said, looking away from Chio. Hi, they all said, although not as energetically as they had before, as they headed off to find Gaara. Unfortunately for them, the Akatsuki didn't leave anything to chance, and by the time they made it to the cave and had to deal with the boulder in the way, the last part of the tailed beast was being extracted. Gaara's dead body hit the hard stone floor with an echoing thud. Finally, Haydn said, "Please, after all your whining, we should be saying that," Kakazu said. "Those girls of yours did pretty well. They let us complete the ceiling without any problems," Zesta said to Naruto. "Wait, so does that mean the Nine Tails is outside this cave?" Deidara asked. "Yes," Zesta said. "It looks like I get to bag 2 jinchuriki," Deidara said. "What are you talking about? Pain is the one taking on the Nine Tails," Kisame said. "I'm sure he won't mind," Deidara said. "Do what you want, just don't get cocky," Pain said in a very threatening voice. "Whatever. Hey Naruto, the Nine Tails is your sister, right? What does she look like?" Deidara asked. Naruto sighed. "Kind of like you," Naruto said before disappearing along with the rest of the Akatsuki. "What's that supposed to mean?" Deidara said to himself. "It doesn't matter now, come on, we have guest coming," Sasori said. Once the boulder was removed, Naruko, Minama, Kakashi, Sasuke, Chio and Kushina rushed into the cave. Guy's team wasn't with them since they had to remove the seals that were keeping the boulder in place. But in the end it wasn't enough, because when they entered the cave they saw Gaara's lifeless body and 2 Akatsuki bastards sitting on him. Kakashi noticed the blonde one was missing an arm. "I'm glad you could make it. You don't know how long we've been waiting for you," Deidara said. "You bastards, what did you do?" Naruko yelled. "I think that's obvious," Deidara said, kicking Gaara's head, which only made Naruko angrier. "But if you still can't figure out, then I'll be glad to give you a demonstration. There's no way I'm going to let you even touch my daughter," Kushina yelled. "That's too bad. I guess I'll just be on my way then," Deidara said with a creepy smile. Then he summoned a white bird thing and hopped on it. The bird then ate Gaara and took off flying right above them. "I think I'm going to take this as a souvenir though." "Get back here," Naruko yelled and went chasing after him. "Naruko, wait, that's what he wants you to do," Kakashi said in a vain attempt to stop her, but she was already gone. "Damn it, Sasuke, you're with me, we're going after him. Do you 3 think you can handle Sasori?" Kakashi asked the girls. "Who do you think you're talking to? Beating this dried up relic will be a cakewalk," Kushina said. "Okay, let's get going, Sasuke," Kakashi said, and they both left to go chase after Naruko. "Aren't you 3 confident calling me a relic when you have more than your fair share of age on your side?" Sasori said. "How about you give us the antidote for the poison you used on Kankuro and we won't hurt you too badly?" Minama said. "And what if I don't have it on me? What if I gave it to someone else for safekeeping, like a certain red-headed girl for instance?" Sasori said with no small amount superiority. "You shut up about her," Minama said as she started running at Sasori. She only got a couple steps when Sasori started launching hundreds of kunais at her. Minama stopped dead in her track, her eyes wide and fear on her face. There was no way she could dodge all of them. Maybe she could avoid any lethal shots if they were regular kunais, but she could see the purple poisonous substance on them. Just when Minama thought the kunais were going to hit her, her body started moving on its own, dodging the kunais up until they stopped coming. "What just happened?" Minama said, looking back at Kushina and Chio, only to see that Chio had several chakra strings connected to Minama. Don't get so worked up, he's obviously lying. Shio said as she pulled on the chakra strings which forced Minima back to them. Well, the Hokage must have done a terrible job training you as you and your sister ran headfirst into a trap. Sasori said. Minima glared at him, but she couldn't hide her embarrassment since he was right. Don't worry about it, Minima. Kushina with her bright motherly smile. You're still young, so there's still plenty of time for you to improve, you just need more experience. What makes you think that she'll live long enough to get that experience? Sasori said. Because I'm helping her, and my friend here is going to do everything in her power to make sure she doesn't get hurt. Kushina said, looking at Chio for confirmation, to which Chio replied with a smile. Now Minima, watch closely because your Kasan is going to show this puppet what happens when he messes with her children. Golden chains started appearing from Kushina's palms and 2 more formed her shoulder blades, making a total of 4. They all also had a spike at the end. Then at speeds that Minima could barely follow, they slashed at Sasori. Sasori used his tail thing to block at the chains at speeds just as fast. Minima was amused. The series of sparks whenever the 2 weapons collided was just amazing. Minima knew this is what it meant to be S-class, to have power so far above your peers. Minima was so proud of her Kasan and wondered if one day she would be able to use her chains like that. The exchange of blows went on, but it was soon becoming apparent that Kushina was whining. It wasn't because she was faster or had more skill, it was simply because she had 4 chains and Sasori only had 1 tail. Then the climax began. Kushina used one of her chains to wrap around Sasori's tail, stopping him from blocking the 3 remaining chains. The slammed into the puppet, smashing it to pieces as a person covered in a sheet jumped out to avoid being killed. I'm impressed you managed to destroy my puppet on your own rather easily, but you are the wife of the 4th Hokage, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Sasori said, turning towards them so they could see his face. No, that can't be. How? Shio said in absolute shock, and everyone could see why. Sasori, who had left the village over 20 years ago, looked like he was in his teens. I was displeased with my odd body, so I made a new one. Sasori said in reply. It doesn't matter if you look 10 or 90. I'm still going to beat you down, and then you're going to tell me how you got my daughter and her friends to join you. Kushina said, looking at Sasori angrily. I'm well aware at how angry you must be at me right now, but if you think that you can beat me, then you're sorely mistaken. Sasori said, pulling out a scroll. Actually, I should say you're sorely mistaken if you think you can beat him. Sasori summoned a puppet that didn't look like anything special to Minima, but Kushina and Shio knew that this was bad news. The 3rd Kazekage, Shio said. Naruko dodged another clay bird which exploded just beside her. This guy was really pissing Naruko off. He had been flying away on his bird the entire time and occasionally threw a clay bird bomb at Naruko. They weren't threatening since he only threw one at a time, but they were starting to make Naruko's ears ring, which only aggravated her more, added with the fact that Naruko didn't have any long-range jutsus to hit Deidara with. Naruko didn't know why Deidara was seemingly leading her on a giant goose chase, but Naruko was getting really tired of it. She was about to increase her speed, but a voice stopped her. You really shouldn't run off like that, Kakashi said, appearing beside her along with Sasuke. But he has Gaara, Naruko said, trying to argue. Naruko, we're a team and teams do things together, Kakashi said rather harshly. Fine, Naruko said with a pout. So how are we going to get him? Kakashi looked up at Deidara, who didn't look happy that he had 2 more guests. That's easy, Kakashi said, giving Naruko an eye smile. We'll shoot him out of the sky. While Naruko and Kakashi were talking, Deidara was in deep thought. He now had 2 unwanted guests, and they had managed to talk some sense into the jinchuriki. Deidara had planned to get her as far away from the cave as possible, then blow her sky high, but since it seemed like Sasori had failed to keep them all in the cave, that plan was out the window. Or was it? All he would have to do was get the jinchuriki riled up again, and he knew just what to do. All right, I understand, Naruko said to Kakashi. Good, now we can dash. Kakashi was cut off by a clay bird flying right at him. He dodged out of the way and the bird flew right past him. What was that? Sasuke asked. It's a clay bird, but normally it explodes. Naruko said, wondering why it didn't. It might have been a dud. Kakashi said, but he had a hard time believing that. Let's just continue with the plan. Kakashi lifted up his headband to reveal his Sharingan. Sasuke also activated his Sharingan. Phoenix Sage Jutsu. Sasuke yelled, spilling fireballs from his mouth that started tracking Deidara. You'll have to do better than that. Deidara said, maneuvering his bird to dodge all of Sasuke's fireballs. Sasuke, watch out! Kakashi yelled. Sasuke was confused since he didn't see anything coming, but less than a second later a clay bird burst the one of Sasuke's fireball and was directly in front of him. Sasuke managed to dodge it, but it blew up beside him and singed his arm and clothes. Damn, he used my own fire jutsu to hide his jutsu. Sasuke said. That's what it means to be S-class. It's not just about high-level jutsus, it's how they can use everything to their advantage and catch their opponent off guard. Kakashi said. Just look at Deidara, he hasn't used any especially powerful jutsus, yet he's still managing to fight the three of us. But you're S-class too, so shouldn't you be equal? Naruko said. Not all S-classes are the same. Kakashi said, but Sasuke and Naruko noticed he had his eye smile. Luckily, I'm a pretty powerful S-class. Suddenly Kakashi disappeared in a pop of smoke. Deidara eyes widened, seeing what he knew was a clone just disappear, so where was the real one? Deidara got his answer when Kakashi jumped up in front of him and landed on his bird. When did he get in front of me? Deidara thought as Kakashi started throwing kunais at him. I thought I told you you'd have to do better than that. Deidara said, jumping off his bird in order to dodge Kakashi's kunais. As Deidara was falling, Kakashi saw him do a hand sign and immediately jumped off the bird right before it exploded. Kakashi got back into formation with Sasuke and Naruko. Meanwhile, it looked like Deidara was going to plummet to the ground. However, an exact duplicate of the clay bird Deidara was previously riding came and picked him up along with eating Gaara as he fell out from the other bird. He wasn't only one riding on that bird though. I got your message and got here as fast as I could. Mito said. It's a good thing you did, or I would be a mess on the ground right now. Deidara said with a chuckle. Mito, Naruko said, not believing that her sister was having such a casual conversation with the guy who killed Gaara. That's why the bird didn't explode, it was a message for Mito. Sasuke said. Just keep calm, Mito's an enemy now and we have to treat her as such. Kakashi said, mainly to Naruko. Naruko didn't reply, she was only focused on Deidara with absolute hate in her eyes. After Mito finished her conversation with Deidara, she turned around to face them. Hey Naruko, long time no see. Oh wait, I guess we did stop you from saving Gaara, sorry about that, but hey, look on the bright side, at least you can experience a fraction of the hate I felt for you during my time living with you. Mito said, getting angrier with each passing word. Mito, I'm telling you I've changed, please believe me. Naruko pleaded. Here we go again, the princess doesn't get what she wants, so all she can do is cry, or better yet, why don't you use some of your demonic chakra? Mito said, smiling. Come on Naruko, do it, you've never hesitated before. I won't. Naruko yelled. Well, we'll just see about that. Mito said, pointing at the group with her hands made to look like finger guns. Dual lightning gun. Mito said and started firing a small burst of lightning at them. Deidara supported her by throwing clay birds at them, putting them complete on the defensive. If this keeps up, we'll be killed. Sasuke said. What do we do, Kakashi? Naruko asked. Don't worry, you two haven't been the only ones training these past 3 years. Kakashi said as he closed his Sharingan eye. What is he doing? Mito thought as she focused her fire on him. Kakashi suddenly opened his eye and gave Mito a brief glacé at his Sharingan, which looked very different from Sasuke or Hitomi. Then he was gone. What the hell? Mito yelled, looking everywhere for Kakashi, but not seeing anything. Mito looked to Deidara for help and didn't like what she saw. Deidara didn't look panicked, but the way his eyes moved let Mito know that he couldn't find Kakashi either. Suddenly something that Mito could only describe as a vortex appeared right beside them. Mito could feel it trying to suck them in, and so could Deidara. He flipped the bird over so they were standing on the bottom of it with chakra in their feet. This was only a temporary solution, however, as the vortex was ripping the bottom of the bird off. They only had one choice at that point. They jumped off the bird onto the ground below. They were now face to face with Naruko and Sasuke, no longer having the advantage of flight. Kakashi also returned to his group, blood dripping for his Sharingan eye. Now that we're on equal footing, the real fight can begin, Kakashi said. One touch, that was all it would take to put them out of the fight. The thought sent shivers through Minima's entire body. Ever since Sasori had released the third Kazekage line with poison weapons from head to toe, the fight had taken a turn for the worst. Getting close to Sasori was impossible with his puppet in the way. Hell, it was taking both Kushina and Chio with her two puppets that she called the mother and the father to keep up with the damn thing. Minima herself wasn't doing much, just throwing a kunai every once in a while or using her chains to try and hit the third Kazekage, but she had to stay very far away from it as per her Kazan's orders. It didn't take long for Sasori to destroy the mother and father, leaving Kushina basically to fend for herself. Kushina wrapped a chain around the puppet's leg and threw it to the ground, but it just got right back up, not the least bit phased. Then it went on another barrage using every kind of weapon imaginable. Kushina did a good job avoiding all the weapons, but they knew that they couldn't keep this up because while Kushina was exhausting herself with all that dodging, Sasori had barely moved. The only solution was to destroy that puppet, but what could Minima do to help? Everything she did, the puppet would dodge it or block it like an afterthought. Had nothing changed? Was she still as weak as she was when she fought Naruto? Minima thought she had made leaps and bounds since then, but here she was just standing her being useless, hoping that someone faster and stronger would take care of everything. Minima suddenly felt a hand on her shoulder and looked up to see Chio. "You're worried, aren't you?" she said. "Was it really that obvious?" Minima said, looking down. "I'm just so useless." "Now this is not the time to feel sorry for yourself," Chio said. "I can't do much else," Minima said, looking at the fight going on in front of her. "You know, when faced with such overwhelming odds, there are two things people will do," Chio said. "They either decide that what they're trying to do is impossible and give up, or they will decide that no matter how bad it looks or how little of a chance they have, they'll still try because they know that one move can change everything. That would be great, but unfortunately for me, I haven't been able to hit with any move, so I guess I'll just have to believe it's impossible," Minima said. "Then I guess you can give up, and when your sister is killed just like Gaara, I guess you can give up then too, because let me tell you something, it's not going to get any easier," Choji said, running off to rejoin the fight and hopefully give Kushina some support. Minima watched the fight with a blank look in her eyes. She didn't know what she was looking at. Was she looking at a tried and sweaty Kushina? No, it hurt too much to look at her Kazan doing her best to win. Was she looking for an opening where the puppet could be hit by Minima since she had long since been inactive? No, Minima could see Sasori's eyes dart over to her every so often. He might not think much of her, but he hadn't forgotten her. Maybe she was looking just because then she'd be able to say that she was there when the first Akatsuki member was killed. Minima was sure that no matter how bad it looked, Kushina would win. Not even when Kushina was panting for breath and barely able to dodge did Minima think she would lose, but that dream came crashing down when Kushina was finally hit. It was hardly even a scratch on her arm, nothing that a normal person would even have to worry about, but it broke skin and that's all that mattered. The poison was inside her and there was nothing she could do. Kushina immediately broke in a flush, sweat dripping down her face worse than ever, and her legs were starting to shake. Minima couldn't believe it, her Kazan was going to die and had just been standing there watching. She had to do something. Time seemed to go in slow motion as the puppet got closer to Kushina. There was no way she had the strength to dodge it, and Chio wasn't going to be able to help. 1,000 plans seemed to rush through Minima's mind, but each one just seemed like it would get Kushina killed faster. Minima tried to think about all she had seen. There had to be some way to stop, if only for an instant. Then Minima thought about everything she knew about puppeteers. Then she remembered how Hanabi had dealt with Chio, and this gave her a plan. Minama shot a chain which the puppet dodged just as easily as before, but what Sasori didn't know was that Minama hadn't been aiming for the puppet. Minama smiled as her chain wrapped around the chakra strings that Sasori was using to control the puppet and gave it a nice tug. The strings bunched up at one point, making it impossible for Sasori to control. Instead of taking the time to fix his current string, he let go of them and shot new ones at the puppet. Kushina had seen what Minama was trying to do, however, and used the last of her strength to shot a chain through the puppet before Sasori was able to get his new string to connect. Minama felt pride in being to help her Kasan, but that quickly disappeared as Kushina fell to the ground coughing up blood. Ka-san! Minama screamed as she ran up to Kushina. Hey, that was some good thinking. How'd you come up with it? Kushina said weakly, trying to force herself to smile. I remembered how Hanabi cut the string that Chio connected to her sword and realized I could attack the strings instead of the puppet, but that doesn't matter right now. What about you? Minama said, tears running down her face. I'll be fine once you beat Sasori and get the antidote. Kushina said, going into a coughing fit. But there's no way I can beat him without your help, and what if he doesn't have the antidote on him? Minama said. He'll have the antidote. Chio said, walking over to join them. And Minama, you won't be alone, I'll be here to help. Minama smiled at Chio, thankful for the help. You think you can keep yourself alive while we kick my ungrateful grandson's ass? Chio asked Kushina. Who do you think you're talking to? Kushina said. I'm happy you three are getting in some bounding time, but I don't like to wait, so we're going to have to hurry this up. Sasori said as he brought up the still active third Kazekage. It had a huge hole in its chest and looked a little wobbly, but it could still fight. Damn, I thought I destroyed it. Kushina said. You just relax, we'll deal with it. Chio said, picking her up and moving her to the side of the cave away from the battle. This battle has gone on too long, so I hope you don't mind if I just end it now. Sasori said as his puppet started spitting out some sort of gray dust. What is that? Minama asked Chio. It's the jutsu that made the third the most feared out of all the Kazekages, iron sand. Chio explained as the sand combined to form a huge block and a triangular prism. Then the block came slamming down towards them. Minama and Chio dodged out of the way only to barely dodge the prism. Minama shot a chain at the sand only for it to bounce off harmlessly. That's not going to work, these things are almost indestructible. We're going to have to destroy the puppet to stop them. Chio said. That was hard enough without two giant things trying to crush us. Minama yelled. It's already heavily damaged, one good strike should be enough. Chio said as she used her chakra string to attach to the prism and throw it off course, if only by a couple inches. Fine, Minama said as she rushed the puppet, but just because it was using its iron set didn't mean it couldn't defend it itself. It fought Minama in pure taijutsu this time, probably because all of its weapon mechanics had been damaged or destroyed by Kushina attack. It also helped that it was a lot more sluggish than before, giving Minama hope that she could actually handle it, but just like always, things wouldn't be that easy. Minama noticed a huge shadow below her and knew she had to get out of there. The block of sand fell, just barely missing Minama as she moved out of the way, but once the block landed it swung to the left and hit Minama dead on. She went flying towards the wall of the cave wall. She hit it, creating a crater. Minama didn't have time to think about the pain she was in as the prism came at her. Minama pulled herself off the wall, letting the prism hit the space she had just occupied. Now Minama knew how Kushina felt having to run around a dodge all the time. The fight had barely begun yet Minama was already running out of breath. She didn't know how much longer she could keep this up as she had to jump out of the way of yet another attack from the block. Chio was trying her best using her churka strings to try and throw the objects somewhere else, but the iron sand was just too heavy and Sasori had too great of a control over it. This gave Minama an idea, however. Minama stopped dead in her tracks and waited for the block to hover right over her head before dodging it as it came down. Then as quickly as she could, Minama placed her palm on the ground and four chakra chains shot out from the ground. They went up and over the block and connected at the top. The block was now anchored to the ground by Minima chain. Sasori tried to move the block and break the chains, but they were too strong. The same couldn't be said for Minima, however. Every time the block bashed against the chains, it felt like Minima's arm was going to rip out of her socket since she had to hold the chains in place. Minima knew she wouldn't be able to hold it there for long, so she ran towards the puppet, extending the chain as she went. Sasori wasn't just going to let her rush his puppet that easily. The prism moved above Minima's head, and right when it was about to drop, the block bashed against the chains in the opposite direction, forcing Minima to stop. There was no way Minima could dodge now, and Sasori smirked, knowing that he would only have Chio to deal with. But something happened. The prism veered a little bit and missed Minima, and Sasori knew exactly what had happened. "Chio," Sasori growled. Chio was panting as it was hardly easy to move that huge thing with her chakra strings. "Minima, go for it!" Choji screamed. "Hi," Minima yelled as she got closer and closer to the puppet. "I don't think so," Sasori yelled as his puppet tried to punch Minima. Sasori realized too late though that the puppet was too slow due to its damage, and Minima had a blue sphere in her hand. "Rasengan!" Minima yelled as she sent the Rasengan through the puppet's chest, completely tearing it apart, and with the fall of the puppet the sand could no longer hold its shape and fell to the ground. "Looks like you lost your ace," Chio said with a smirk. "That isn't my only ace," Sasori said darkly. He took off his cloak, revealing his puppet body. There was a cable in his stomach, and he sported 2 saw blades from his back. He also opened a compartment on the left side of his cheeks along with a scroll. Minima watched in horror as 100 puppets emerged. "Let's see you stop this," Sasori said. Chio hissed. "I promised myself I would never use this again, but it looks like I don't have a choice," Chio said, pulling out a scroll that released her own army of puppets, although it was only 1/10 the size of Sasori's. What ensued next couldn't be called anything else than a mash pit. There was no strategy, just take down as many puppets as you could. Swords clashing against swords, chains hitting wood, and so on. When it was all over, nothing had been gained. All of Chio's puppets were destroyed, and so were Sasori's. Sasori was far from beat, however, as a lunged at Minima, using his blades to nearly chop off her arm. Minima was luckily and by sheer panic managed to dodge, but there was no questioning it. Sasori was fast, far too fast for Minima to keep up, and since Chio no longer had any puppets, Minima didn't know how much help she'd really be. Then Sasori shot his cable at Minima, and no amount of panic was going to help her dodge this time. The cable, laced in poison, cut the side of Minima's stomach. Minima could feel the poison burning her body as it entered her bloodstream. It made the giant gash she had feel like nothing. Minima collapsed to her knees, already seeing black. Minima could hear Sasori saying something, but his voice felt like it was miles away. All Minima could pick up was something about hating to wait and how he was going to end this. Minima didn't need to hear the rest to know she was screwed. Even if Sasori didn't hack her into piece with his saw blade, she would die from the poison or bleed out from the gash on her stomach. Sasori had apparently already decided her fate as Minima saw him lung at her through the blurry blackness that made up her eyesight. Minima was prepared for the cold metal to cut into her flesh, but something else happened in the middle of his leap. Sasori suddenly faceplanted on the ground. Minima was wondering what the hell had happened when she noticed a gold chain wrapped around Sasori's leg. Minima realized that Kushina had saved her. No, not just saved her, but had given her the chance that Chio had been talking about. One move is all it takes to chance everything, Minima thought as she shot her own chain at Sasori. It didn't wrap around him, it just landed on top of him, but that was all Minima needed. She had been practicing this move for the past 3 years, and it was finally time to see if it paid off. Minima used the last of her strength to force her lightning chakra through her chain. It acted as a conductor, and Sasori was the lightning rod. The lightning electrocuted Sasori's body until it started smoking. Minima hadn't noticed it before, but there was some sort of cylinder in Sasori's chest. And it seemed to be smoking the worst. Then Minima blacked out. Gaara's body landed behind Deidara and Mito, kicking up dust. This only served to make Naruko angrier at Deidara. Deidara was not happy his plan was out the window and he doubted that Kakashi would just let him create another bird and fly away on it. Also with one missing arm he wasn't exactly equipped for close-range combat. Deidara was thinking that they just cut their losses and leave, but one look at Naruko told him that getting away wasn't going to be an option. "I guess I'll just have to blow you up," Deidara said as he got his hand-mouth working on some of his art. "I don't think so," Sasuke said as he started up his Chidori and rushed Deidara. Mito withdrew her swords and pointed them at Sasuke. "Lightning rife," Mito said as lightning flowed from the hilt of her sword to the tip and then shot a burst of pure lightning at Sasuke. It was much faster and more powerful than when she had just been using her fingers, but with the Sharingan Sasuke was able to dodge without losing momentum. Deidara couldn't create his art soon enough so he did the only thing he could. Deidara jumped over Sasuke as he ran right under him. This on course left Deidara as a very easy target, something that Kakashi picked up on. He created another one of those vortexes that had caused them to crash. Deidara couldn't move much in the air but he managed to maneuver just enough so the vortex didn't kill him. That wasn't to say it was a successful dodge as the vortex ripped off his other arm. Now armless Deidara had no way to make his art, which put they in a pretty bad position. The only good news was that Kakashi looked down for the count. His eye was bleeding worse than ever and he was on one knee. Deidara didn't have time to admire Kakashi because Sasuke came around and tried to send his Chidori through Deidara's chest. Mito saw this and moved to intercept him. Sasuke was surprised when his Chidori was stopped by Mito's sword. Sasuke had always thought that the Chidori could price anything, so it was a huge shock when Mito's sword not only stopped it, but started absorbing it. Sasuke backed away quickly, not knowing what was happening. "How the hell did you do that?" Sasuke asked, looking at his hand to see if there was anything wrong. "The Kiba is used to channel real lightning. Your little lighting chakra has nothing on that," Mito said with a smirk. "I just used my sword as a lightning rod and absorbed the Chidori." Sasuke didn't know what to say. If what Minima said was true, then anything lightning attack would be worthless as long as she could block with her sword. Wondering what to do, Sasuke looked back at Gaara's body and quickly ran for it. He threw Gaara over his shoulder and made a large loop around Minima so he was back on the side with Naruko and Kakashi. Sasuke was wondering why Mito hadn't tried to stop him. He looked over to see that Deidara staring off into space while Mito seemed to be waiting for orders from him. Several seconds passed before Deidara regained his senses. He muttered understood to seemingly no one before turning to Mito and saying, "We're done here, it's time to go." Mito didn't question it. "Hey, you can't just walk away," Naruko yelled. She couldn't believe them. They started this fight, killed Gaara, and now they were just going leave on the flip of a dime. "Why not you got Gaara back?" Deidara said mockingly. "You killed him," Naruko yelled, running straight at him knowing he had no way to defend it himself. Naruko pulled out a kunai and was prepared to stab him through the chest. Let him feel all the pain he inflicted on Gaara. Naruko kunai never hit flesh, instead it hit the hard steel of Mito blade. "Mito, this doesn't concern you, get out of my way." Naruko practically growled and started sending wind chakra to her kunai. "I won't," Mito said with little emotion as she channeled lightning chakra to her blade. To Naruko's surprise, it started cutting through her kunai. Behind Mito, Naruko could see Deidara shove his face into a bag that was laying on the ground, and when he came back up he was chewing on something, no doubt trying to make another bird. "Get out of my way," Naruko yelled, pushing down harder. "Naruko, stop," Kakashi said, trying to get up but fell back down to his knees. Naruko was confused. Why would Kakashi want her to stop? Deidara was trying to get away and she needed to make him pay. "I see you haven't changed," Mito said, breaking Naruko out of her thoughts, and that's when she looked at her hands and realized what she had done. She was leaking demonic chakra, at least a tail's worth. The shock was so much that Naruko backed off to try and control herself. This gave Deidara enough time to complete his bird and hop on it. "Come on, let's get going," he said to Mito, who hopped on with him. "Wait." Naruko yelled after using some trick Jiraiya had taught her to contain the demonic chakra. It didn't do any good though, as the bird took off and flew away. Naruko was about to chase after them, but Kakashi stopped her. "Stop, Naruko, we'll never catch them," Kakashi said, finally getting back on his feet even if they were pretty shaky. "But they're going to get away," Naruko said. "It doesn't matter, we wouldn't be able to catch them anyways. We should head back to the cave. Kushina and the others might need our help," Kakashi said. "Hi," Naruko said half-heartedly and followed him. It took a while to get back because of Kakashi's overuse of the Sharingan, but it didn't really matter. The fight had been over for a long time and it was not a pretty sight. Chio was bandaging up a horrible wound on a very sick-looking Minima's side while Kushina was stilling off to the side looking pretty sick herself. "What happened?" Sasuke said as he looked at the mess of puppets all over the place. "We won," Chio said. "But Kushina and Minima here got poisoned. Luckily Sasori had 3 antidotes on him, so I was able to save the both of them and we'll still have one for Kankuro." "They don't look fine," Naruko said. "It doesn't work instantly, give it some time," Chio said as she finished the bandaging and walked over to Sasuke. "Give me Gaara," she said. "What for?" Sasuke asked. "Just do it," Chio said, and Sasuke handed him over. Chio laid Gaara on the ground and kneeled over him. "What are you doing?" Naruko asked. "The world doesn't need an old fart like me anymore. It would be much better off if a young person with fresh dreams came back," Chio said, doing some hand seals. "Wait, what are you saying?" Naruko said. "Make sure to get that antidote back to Kankuro," Chio said as she placed her hands on Gaara's chest and closed her eyes. "Chio, wait," Naruko said, but it was too late. Chio fell over dead just as Gaara opened his eyes. Team Guy arrived shortly after and they headed off to Suna. It took them a long time to make it back to Suna, mostly because Kakashi, Minima and Kushina were all injured. Gaara also had to deal with the fact he died and was no longer a jinchuriki. He didn't talk the entire way back. Naruko had just explained what had happened and he demanded they make it back to Suna as fast as they could so they could save Kankuro. It wasn't just Gaara who didn't talk. Everyone was in deep thought, mostly about the appearance of Mito, Hanabi and Hitomi and of course the death of Chio. The only real conversation was a debate on if they should send a messenger toad back to Minato. Kushina shot that down, saying that she wanted to tell him herself, so they all just focused on getting back to Suna. But in the end none of it mattered. When they got back to Suna, Kankuro was dead and had been for a long time. "Hi," Naruto said, cutting off the mental link with pain. "So Sasori went and got himself killed and somehow Gaara survived," Hayden said. "It doesn't matter, we still got the one tail, so we've broke even. Besides, it won't stay that way for long because we've made it," Naruto said with his psychopathic grin, looking at Kumogakure. "Let's get to work." "Oh, make. Toby, I thought we told you to defend the cave. Where were you?" Mito yelled at a very frightened Toby. "I was going to, but I had to, fight off an alien invasion." "Yeah, that's what happened. There were millions of them coming down from their spaceships. They demeaned that I give them all the dango in the world, but I wouldn't let them have it, so a massive fight ensued. It was hard, but I managed to use my amazing just to push them back, but sadly by the time I was done the Leafnin had already gotten to the cave and Sasori dead. What kind of friend am I to let him die in his time of need?" Toby said, starting to cry like a baby. "Toby, that at the dumbest excuses I've ever heard," Mito yelled and proceeded to beat the crap out of Toby. While Mito was busy, Hanabi asked Hitomi a question that had been bothering her for a little while now. "Hey Hitomi, don't you feel like we're forgetting something?" "Yeah, but I just can't think of what it could be," Hitomi replied. Meanwhile, far away from the girls was a lake that had a certain someone in it. "How long is it going to take those Leafnin to get here? I feel like the ceiling should have been over by now," Suigetsu thought.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.